18. Frontiersmen. It was the 4th of July. It was hot. Definitely hot enough to fry an egg on the sidewalk. We had actually fried several out behind the store. It was a slow day and we had time for that. See, I'm a refrigerator repairman. In hot weather, we always have to be on standby. The heat puts a lot of strain on those old fridges. But since it was the 4th of July, no one was actually coming into the store. It was a holiday. People were barbecuing, pool partying. I was waiting for calls at the store with Ray, a kid we hired that summer. Funny enough, no one had called that day. Not a one. Either someone else was getting our business, like that news store at the strip mall down the street, or no one's fridges were breaking. It was close to dinner time. I got in the car and drove over to 7-Eleven. I got a Slurpee. Red, white, and blue, of course. A pack of Marlboro Lights, and 4 hot dogs from me and Ray. They had some red, white, and blue licorice on sale at the counter. I decided it might be fun to try, so I bought some. On the way back, I drove down the street to look at the new appliance store to see how they were doing. It was a sleek new store, attached to a custom-made furniture store. Inside they had salesmen in white shirts and ties standing beside their newest models. I saw a salesman inside, but no customers. The person at the counter was on the phone. Maybe they were getting our repair calls. When I drove back to the shop, Ray was outside. He walked up to the van. Got a call from a lady in Covenant Hills. Says her fridge has been broken for 2 days now. Why didn't she call before? He rolled his shoulders. Beats me. You got the food? Yeah. I handed him the hot dogs and a soda. I had finished my dogs on the drive over. He walked back to the store with his hands full. He left the address of the woman on the seat of the car. He also left the passenger side door open. Ray, close the door. But he was already in the shop. I think he heard me as the shop door was closing behind him, but he pretended not to. I pulled out from the curb and slammed on the brakes. I hoped that would cause the door to shake and close. It wobbled, but stayed open. I tried it again, a lot harder. Things fell down in the back, but the door didn't close. Son of a bitch. So I tried it going backwards. My Slurpee fell over, but fortunately I had drunk most of it already. The sheet of paper with the address dangled close to the edge of the seat. If it flew out, I would really be mad, because I'd have to get out and get it. I lurched the car forward, then stopped again. The door almost closed. I tried going backwards and turning the car. Even closer, but not quite. Then I realized there was a line of cars behind me waiting to pass to get out of the parking lot. There were quite a few, but no one had thought to honk. I pulled aside, leaned over, and yanked the door close. Covenant Hills was one of the older neighborhoods, houses built in the 1950s. 1-levels, split levels, but not too many 2-story jobs. Those were mainly in the newer neighborhoods, which were farther out, where all the houses had been supersized in the 90s. Most of my jobs were in older places like Covenant Hills. Old houses, old fridges. In the newer neighborhoods, people had the state-of-the-art fridges that never broke, and when they did, they just bought new ones. The customer I was going to, Mrs. Giles, lived at 165 Ridgemont Drive. While I was searching the neighborhood, I had the craving for something sweet. I looked around for the red, white, and blue licorice, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I stopped the van. I figured it wouldn't hurt to stop. After all, the side was plastered with the name of the store, Daniel Boone's Appliance Repair, with Daniel Boone there on the side with his coonskin cap and a wrench in place of a rifle. Parking was free advertising. The company was partly mine. My father and some of his friends had founded it. I don't know why they picked the name they did. None of the guys were named Daniel or Boone. My father's name wasn't Dan, and neither was mine. I couldn't find the licorice and realized I must have accidentally given it to Ray. Greedy weasel. I drove around again for 15 minutes but couldn't find the house. Ridgemont Drive wasn't a problem to find. I had already found it. It was the house number I couldn't find. The highest number so far was 96. My GPS was no help. According to it, I had already arrived at my destination. I decided to ask for directions. I picked 65 Ridgemont. I had a feeling about them, maybe because they had two of the three numbers I was looking for. My coveralls were navy blue, so you can imagine they soaked up the sun's rays like a solar panel. I couldn't wait for the sun to go down. The residents at 65 Ridgemont obviously had children. The toys were scattered all over the yard. I stepped on a plastic shovel by accident and pretty well broke it. What do you expect? It was left on the sidewalk. They could afford a new one by the looks of it anyway. There was a broken robot by the door and a tank with a turret missing in the bushes. These kids were ungrateful for their toys. I knocked on the screen door. I could see into the house. Looked like they were having a cookout on the back deck. I wondered if anyone heard me. I knocked again. Coming! A short woman, 30-ish, came to the door. She didn't open it. I didn't call a repairman. No, you didn't, ma'am. I tipped the bill of my baseball cap. I could feel it moving smoothly over the sweat on my forehead. But someone on 165 Ridgemont did, and I just can't find that part of the street. I was wondering if you knew where to point me? She put her hands on her hips. She had long fingernails painted red, white, and blue with silvery stars in the spirit of the holiday. Let me ask my husband. Much obliged. She disappeared from the door. I heard a sliding glass door open, then another set of footsteps. A man in white shorts appeared. You looking for 165 Ridgemont? Yes, sir. Just go down to the end of that street where it terminates on Loyalty Heights. Turn left, then take the first right, and that will turn into the rest of Ridgemont. It's like a little hidden section of road where it extends. Don't know why they made it that way. Thank you, sir. You have a good 4th. You too, he said. He never opened the screen door. When I pulled up at Mrs. Giles' house, I was so hot and tired I felt like I had already worked on a fridge. By the amount of sweat on the back of my suit and under my arms, you wouldn't think otherwise. I knew I had the right house, so I went to the back of the van and grabbed the toolkit. It felt extra heavy, and the shiny metal blinded my eyes. I wiped my forehead with a rag and stuck it in my pocket. The house was a split level, with forest green siding, pea green trim, and turquoise shutters. There was an '83 Duster in the driveway. The garage was open, and I could see it was too full of stuff, chairs, drawers, old lawnmowers, to accommodate the car. I walked to the door and knocked. Mrs. Giles answered in a pink nightgown. There was what looked like a coffee stain on the part that bulged out right under her belt and above her crotch. She had a leathery brown face, probably from sun and smoking. Her hair was dyed black. There was a half-inch of gray at the roots. Come in and have a look at the patient, she said, unlatching the door. Happy 4th, I said. Oh yeah, happy holiday. I'm glad you guys are still open. 24-hour emergency service, ma'am. 365 days a year. She grunted and walked into the kitchen. On the kitchen table, a TV was playing, surrounded by empty coffee mugs with stained bottoms. There was a plate with eggs and ketchup hardening. The fork was in a coffee cup. There was a man on the TV describing a 4th of July parade. I walked to the fridge. Hasn't been cold for 2 days, she said. I took off the grate, pulled out a rag to wipe away dust, and peered under with the flashlight. Probably a busted compressor. It was an old model, about 20 years old. I was surprised it had lasted that long. It had to be the compressor. Compressors are the first to go on those old models. My husband used to fix all these things around the house. Really? I said. He was handy. I guess that made him good for one thing. He's long gone now. Is that a good thing? She laughed. You're telling me. I had to look at the back. I stood up and rocked the fridge forward. I heard things moving inside, but Mrs. Giles didn't seem too worried about spills. I got my flashlight and looked in back. That's when you get into people's private lives, looking behind their fridge, seeing places where they don't clean, where things get lost and hidden. It's getting to the bottom of things. The linoleum was gray with dust in the back. I was right. The compressor was shot to hell. Compressor is broken. Well, can you fix it? Yeah, I've got some replacement parts in the truck. I'll get them. I turned the fridge completely around and spread my tools all about the kitchen floor. People like to see that. Lots of tools. They think work is being done. She leaned against the countertop in her bathrobe and watched me. Must be hot in that suit. It is. Real hot. I can't imagine working on the 4th of July. Well, the holiday pay is good. That's consolation. You doing anything special? She grunted while she lit a cigarette. Haven't had plans on the 4th for years. That's the way I like it, though. Too old for all that crazy whistling and screaming and explosive shit. Once you've seen a few, you've seen 'em all. I remember one year a house down the street caught on fire from some fireworks. Fire department had to come and everything. That was something. Some of those rockets do get noisy. That they do. That they do. I can just sit here and watch the show at DC on the television. It's always so pretty there alongside all those monuments. I don't know which ones are which, though. Well, the tall one's the Washington Monument, I said. I knew that, she said. The others, your guess is as good as mine. Is the one real near the Washington Monument, the one that's supposed to look like a Greek temple, is that the Lincoln? I think so, but they all sort of look like Greek temples to me, I said. There's one for Benjamin Franklin that looks like a temple, I think. They took up all that space for those big ones and only had enough room left for one wall for the Vietnam Memorial. But I guess that is what they do for wars we didn't win. Because they sure made a big memorial there for World War II. I think maybe they should reassign which ones are which. You know, Lincoln's been dead a long time. They should use that spot for another memorial. Mind if I get a glass of water? Sure. You should take that suit off. You're gonna die in it. I just might. I drank the water. You must be hot in that robe. Nah, I got nothing on underneath. But that's no come on, you hear? See, when I get too hot, I just go lie down in the little pool I have out back. You've got a little pool? Just a little plastic one. It's left over from when my daughter's kids were little. Ah, okay. So you just skinny dip for all the neighbors to see? I said with a chuckle. Are you crazy? I've got a fence. I keep all those people out of my business. Live and let live, I say. It's the American way. Oh, right. I went back to the fridge, wrenching, screwing, socketing. Mrs. Giles flipped through the channels, not staying longer than a second or two on any one channel, except for when she landed on an old John Wayne Western. She stayed on that for a while, finally saying, John Wayne. Now that is when men were men. So how many grandkids do you have? I asked, trying to make conversation. 3. 3 that I know of. Just my daughter has children. My son's too young yet. Well, not too young. He just can't seem to get his act together. He'll straighten out. He's not a bad kid. Just doesn't use his head. For instance, he studied art when he was at junior college. He's got talent, but no common sense. He and a girlfriend of his from art school. I don't know if she is a girlfriend or just a friend, but if they are screwing, I sure hope he's using protection. He is not ready to be a dad. I'd probably end up taking care of the little brat. But they were walking by that bowling alley on Guinea Road. You know which one I'm talking about? Yeah. Well, the side by the railroad tracks, you can't see it from the road, but it's all spray painted. Now, he and his friend thought that since the wall was already covered, they could go and paint it too. So they took some paintbrushes and paint went down there. Thought of it as a community beautification project. She rolled her eyes and crushed out a cigarette. The thing is, they did this at 3 in the afternoon. The owner came out, he was this Korean man, and he just went crazy and called the police. My son and the girl were arrested. This wasn't good for my son because he was already on probation. I started to loosen the bolts around the old compressor. Probation for what? Oh, this is a good one, too. He got stopped for speeding. The officer asked if he could search his backpack. He said sure. And the cop found his switchblade. What's he got a switchblade for? His father gave it to him. I don't know how long he's had it. Years. Just carries it around like a keepsake or something. I don't know. So he got busted for carrying around a concealed illegal weapon. We talked to a lawyer about it, but he said there was nothing we could do since he gave the cop permission. We might have a case if he had said no, but then the cop could have said that he had probable cause and searched him anyway. They get you if they want to. You know how cops are. Yep, they really sock it to you. Thing is, he had weed in the backpack too, but the officer just ignored that. She lit another cigarette and blew a stream of smoke up at the ceiling. I had the old compressor detached now. It was caked with dust. Its parts were long past salvageable. I pulled the new one out of its box and put the old one in the empty box. It's so nice that you speak English, she said to me. So many of the repairmen now, the delivery boys, the plumbers, don't speak the language anymore. You gotta be fluent in Spanish or Korean or something nowadays. Well, it's fine that they don't come over here. It's just that they should learn the language. I don't mean this to be racist at all, but let's be frank. It's really people like us that understand each other better. She said it as if there was no arguing, and I guess there really wasn't. I put together the new compressor and had another drink of water. Mrs. Giles didn't have air conditioning. I wished she did. My clothes were so wet now, like I had worn them in the shower. They were sticking to my body. The washers would have to be replaced before I installed the new compressor. I went to the van to get some. On the way back inside, I saw Mrs. Giles go out into the backyard. I guess she was going to cool off. I wiped my hands clean and pulled out my phone to call Ray. He said no one else had called, so I took my time with the rest of the repairs. I heard a high-pitched sound from the wall. It was the outside spigot. Mrs. Giles was pouring fresh water into her pool. The TV was still on, so I stood in front of it while I polished some bolts. I hummed along with a commercial jingle I liked. What did your daddy do? She asked when she came back inside. Her hair was wet and dripping on the shoulders of her bathrobe, but she didn't seem to mind. She looked as if she felt cool and refreshed. He was a refrigerator repairman, too. She said. It's always interesting to me how sons follow in their daddy's footsteps. He had more work back then, of course. Refrigerators broke down more then. Now they hardly ever do. Just my dumb luck then, she said. Well, this is an older model, I said. My dad's dad was a repairman, too. Plumbing mainly, and his father was an immigrant. From where? Eastern Europe. I don't know which country. Prussia, Poland, Austria, one of those. Do all those countries even exist anymore? Seems like they're always redrawing borders over there. I know they came through Ellis Island, though. Must have been some Irish in your family. You look like a good Irish boy. Possibly, I said and wiped some rust away from a bolt. They all came over here looking for something better. She moved the coffee cup to one side of the table and turned the TV so she could see John Wayne shoot a couple Indians, Mexicans, or both. A lot of people dying this weekend, she said. How's that? Famous people. They just said on the radio last night, that the guy who used to read the news died last. And then right after that, they said how this big movie director had died and also this aging Broadway star. They must not have liked the summer heat, I said. Pretty unpatriotic to die on a day like today. My friend's granddad died 2 days ago. They having the funeral next week 'cause of the holiday? No, had it today. You didn't go? No, I'm working, I said. Your friend go? He's not really my friend, just a guy I work with, Ray. Oh, but did he go? No, had work to do, I said. If getting paid time and a half to eat hot dogs and my stolen licorice could be called work. The compressor was in and humming away. The fridge would be cold soon. You know, You got some rubber hoses back here that are about to go. I'm going to replace them. How much? No charge. That's mighty nice of you. No worries, I said. No worries? I think that's what Australians would say. I have some beers in the neighbor's fridge next door. I'm going to get them, she said, shuffling across the kitchen in her slippers. Sure. I heard the front screen door slam shut. I yanked the old hoses out, threw them in the trash, then went out to the van. The sun was down, but the air would be hot all night. So hot it made me weak. I sat down in the back of the van before walking back. I found a water bottle in the back. The water inside was so warm it was undrinkable. I poured it into my hat and dumped it on my head instead. It felt nice. My suit was already so hot and heavy from the moisture, more water didn't make a difference. I saw Mrs. Giles return with the beers, so I got up, wiped off my face, and went in with the hoses. Mrs. Giles watched me from the table with her beer while I hooked up the hoses, the TV still playing behind her. I could see John Wayne just over her shoulder. He was poised there the way angels or devils are sometimes in the cartoons, whispering in the ears of the characters. I had wondered if John Wayne would be an angel or a devil. Mrs. Giles had got real quiet, and I wondered if she was sad. When she saw that I was done, she offered me a beer. No, sorry, I'm on the job. Come on, it's a holiday. Let me finish cleaning up first. I put away my tools, wiped my forehead, face, and neck again. I picked up my trash, wiped the floor, and took another drink of water. I calculated the bill, writing extra hard on the sheet to press through on the carbon paper. My hands left wet prints on the paper. Sweat, of course. I showed it to Mrs. Giles. She noted the amount, folded it up, and slipped it into the pocket of her robe. I'll write you a check. Sure, I said. You want that beer? Let me think about it. I went to the van and put away the tools, went back for one last look. I saw she had left the check for me on the table. The fridge was a bit off-center. I knew she wouldn't mind if I left it that way, but I centered it anyway. Mrs. Giles was setting up the TV to watch the DC fireworks. I called Ray. It rang 5 times. Mrs. Giles settled on a station she liked and tilted her head back to drink another beer. Ray's phone rang 5 more times. I tapped my foot on the floor. I guessed Ray was watching the fireworks too. I leaned on the counter. Mrs. Giles smiled. Look at you. You're soaked with sweat. Go take that horrid suit off and soak your feet in the pool. Why not? I thought. Why not? All right. I went out back, took off my boots and stuffed my socks in them. I took off the suit and folded it up beside the boots. I was in my boxers and t-shirt now. My whole body was moist and smooth with perspiration. I glistened like I was covered in Vaseline. The backyard grass was yellow and drying. Its brittle blades crunched and occasionally hurt my feet as I walked over them. The pool was little, pink, and plastic. There were pale, sand-colored fish painted on the bottom. I imagined that they were bright yellow before the sun got to them. The hose was by the pool. I stood in the water and sprayed myself. There was a pop in the distance. Then a bigger one. I heard the crackle of sparklers and voices over the fences. Woo-wee! I said, getting into the spirit of things. I came back inside. Mrs. Giles had a cold beer for me. Fireworks were exploding on the TV. You want to stay and watch the fireworks? I ain't got nothing to eat here, but I've got beer here, and liquor for later. What do you think? You're such a nice boy. I stood staring at the beer. My boiler suit was in my hand, and I dried myself with it. Stars and Stripes Forever was playing on the television. There was an announcer describing the fireworks. Why not? I said. Why not? There was nowhere else left to go.